Hey, it's Mark here. Welcome back to Brands Investors Love. This is a podcast that is all about building brands that not only make your company more effective, but that make you more desirable to investors if you want to attract funding or if you potentially want to do an exit. And I want to bring aboard people who are brand builders, who view the brand from a different perspective, people who are exit specialists, people who are investors, all the sort of people you want who give you all the sort of information you need to build a brand that investors love. And I'm super stoked today to have Phil Doublet, an exit specialist who helps companies achieve a positioning that gets them a higher valuation when they exit. And Phil came on my radar. We've known each other for a while, but he's got a fantastic newsletter, and I will tell anybody about the newsletter after the show. He's got a fantastic newsletter, and he had one story in there that really caught my eye. Phil, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
Did I butcher the intro? Did I do
Oh,
okay?
it's perfect. No, it's great as
Okay.
always.
Okay, good. Now, I'm a big fan of your newsletter. There is
Thank you.
always a great story in there. I love your stories because they're always a company and how they did something wrong and then how they got it right and how they achieved a better exit for it. But there was one story in this week's newsletter that made me call you up and say, you got to get on here. And that's the story of swag.com. Give me a bit of background on swag.com.
Well, swag, as you might imagine from the name, is they sell swag, often called trinkets and trash. And they were looking to grow. They needed an investor, um, and the investors they were meeting just regarded them as a simple distributor of promotional products. Big deal. You're just the same as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That, of course, only gave them a single digit multiple for EBITDA, and it really didn't hit the owner's requirements. Um, this emphasizes a thing that I talk to my clients about all the time, and that is you have to look at your company through a potential buyer's, or in this case, investor's eyes. It's
Mm-hmm.
not good enough to say, "This is me. How do you like me so far?" Right? And because in Swag's case, what they did is they looked at, or they understood how a buyer was looking at them and said, "Oh, we're not just another little uh, commercial company.
Mm-hmm.
We are, in fact, an e-commerce platform. We have an awesome domain name. You can speak to that quite well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we really have created a world-class, elegant customer buying experience." Once that perception shifted in investors' eyes, they got a much more attractive valuation and were able basically to close their deal. So just
Now,
another example of repositioning.
yeah, it's a great example. Um, and I often say to clients that I work with, entrepreneurs I work with, your perspective on what your brand is valuable to me, but it's way more valuable to get an outsider's perspective, a customer perspective, or in this case, a helpful investor's perspective, because it can help you build something that more people want. In this case, an investor or even somebody just buying your swag for their next company picnic. So did this come as news to the founder of swag.com? Did they go, oh, I never thought of that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I have other examples of the clients the same way, that you sort of get into your little echo chamber, and
Hmm.
you hear what you want to hear and you see what you want to see. It's a really good exercise to step out and look through a potential buyer's eyes, because, well, first of all, their assumptions are going to be different than yours, and they may
Hmm.
be dead wrong. And it's going to ultimately benefit you if you can really, walk the mile in their moccasins, as
Hmm.
we used to say.
A change like this doesn't happen overnight, though. I
Oh,
mean, or did
absolutely.
they just say, hey, you know what? We're no longer a swag company. Now we're an e-commerce platform. They probably had some time to work
Yeah,
on
but
executing and making it real.
I have a program where I help customers do exactly that same thing. They go from point A to point B, increase their valuation, and make their company more attractive to potential buyers. So that's a year long program,
A year
and
long.
I mean, it can be compressed, but realistically, we're talking about changing how companies operate, potentially hiring people, changing marketing messages.
Hmm.
I don't have to tell you that that takes a while.
Hmm.
So I don't. Yeah, it's not an overnight process if you want to do it right.
In the case of swag.com, what were the touch points? Do you know what they, because I know this wasn't a project that you personally were overseeing, but this is a very familiar project to you. Do you know what the touch points were that they actually addressed?
Well, the first one was that they were perceived like just everybody else. So
Mhm.
the key thing that talk about in the program is what's your differentiator? What's your market dominating position? How do you rise above the herd? And in this case, Swagger.com did a really good job of creating a really excellent experience. We talk about that all the time. So I'm sure you do too, from a marketing perspective. It's all about the experience. So it's not just, hey, I'd like to order, 500 gross of pens. It is, I'm looking for something special. Can you help me? And the
Mhm.
whole buyer experience, customer experience, made their company inherently more valuable than just the generic off the shelf send me a dozen pens company.
Mhm. Now, what always catches me too is that if you go through an exercise like this and you decide not to sell, it's a no lose situation, because essentially what you've done, you've just moved up a notch. Your snack bracket just got better and higher quality. So they're going to be making more money whether they decide to exit or not.
Well, not only are they going to make more money, people that go through my program, they find that, of course, get more valuation and all those other things. But by optimizing the company and the structure, the owners get more time to themselves. They're not working at 70 hours a week with no hope in sight and not having a vacation ever. So the company operation is better. The phrase we use is build a company that can work without you. It doesn't have to work
Yeah.
without you. It can work without you. Right?
That's a big one, because I think that's one of the things that's probably hardest as a founder to do, is to understand that you're building something that can live on its own, because it's kind of devastating to your ego. Everybody wants to feel needed, and I imagine it's hard to let that go.
Well, it is, but statistically, 80% of business owners expect to sell their business someday to fund their retirement or just do
Hmm.
the next thing. Um, that's no one gets shocked at that stat.
Hmm.
The stat that shocks more people is that only about 25% of businesses that are listed for sale ever actually sell. So there's a lot of space between those 2 points. There's a lot
Yeah.
of disappointment, broken dreams. If you set your business up to sell, even if you don't want to sell for 3 or 5 years down the road, first of all, you'll be able to not be at your business 100% of the time. You'll have a smoothly functioning operation, and you will be able to pull the pin when you want to grab some opportunity or do the next thing. That's the good part. The bad part is what happens if you get hit by a bus on the way to work tomorrow? What's your business going to be like if it's not set up properly? Is your spouse going to run it for you? What about your employees and your
Hmm.
customers? There's a lot of really good reasons to set your business up properly sooner than you want to sell.
Okay, so bringing the horses round the end of the track here. Step one, I'm afraid. I'm running my business like it's my personal consultancy. I mean, for me, I'm a personal consultant, so that's what I do. But somebody's running a business, and they're stuck in it.
Yeah.
They're 7 days a week. They're 8, 10 hours a day. What's the first thing they do?
Well, facetiously, call me. We'll take it through the step. The first step that we go through is an assessment. We do an objective assessment. Takes about 15 minutes, not too painful,
Mm-hmm.
and it will measure the company across 8 different dimensions, and it shows little little speedometers and red, yellow, or green. Most companies, statistically, and this is over like 70,000 transactions, most companies end up about 60%, which is right in the middle of the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
If you can move those needles into the green, you've got a business that's highly saleable. Your valuation's probably gone up by 50, 60, 70%, and you got your life back. So assessment tells you what we need to do. We create a roadmap and then execute on the roadmap.
And do you have coaching that walks people along, because I mean,
Absolutely.
it's one thing. The LinkedIn is filled with people who will give you the hottest tips on this and the hottest tips on that, and usually it's a bust, because you need somebody to walk with you. Otherwise, you would have done it yourself. You would have picked up a book. So do you have coaching that they can have deliverables and objectives and
Yeah,
timelines?
absolutely. I'm certified and experienced with a platform called Value Builder, that the program that does the
Mhm.
assessment. And every one of those 8 needles that I mentioned has a module associated with it, with homework and with a whole process to move those needles into the green. So yeah, and I have a mastermind program that basically we follow it along, and at the end of a year, you've got a whole lot better business.
Oh man, you're doing the Lord's work, man. I can imagine there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are one terribly downhearted when you first go through the value the assessment with them, and then I imagine very, very quickly, because a year in the time of a business, that's not a long time.
Yes,
I
it's
imagine they start to get pretty happy pretty quickly.
well, and when you see the potential increase in your valuation, which is usually almost always 6 figures, sometimes 7 figures, say, "Oh, I can do that in a year." Well, that might be worth spending a few hours a month doing, right?
That's
So yeah,
highly
it's
motivating. Highly
it
motivating.
should be.
Oh
Yeah,
man. Well, again, I want to thank you for coming on.
my
And
pleasure.
I'm gonna do my best to push more folks in your direction, because I mean, if they do well, you do well, we all do well. But you're exactly the sort of person that this group needs.
Great, thanks, Mark. I really appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.